Yo, yo,
What's up?
what's up, man?
You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear
All
you.
right, we're
How you doing, dude?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, man. I'm stoked to chat with you today, man. Thanks for coming through.
Yeah, dude, I was excited to talk. You came highly recommended, and I saw you've interviewed some great folks, so I'm excited to be here.
Dude, hell yeah. And I appreciate that. Um, yeah, dude. I mean, like, we could just dive right in if you're cool with it. We are recording right now, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
Let's do it.
Perfect. So I'll just kick it off real quick and then we'll just get right into it and have a chill combo.
Cool.
All right, cool. What's good? Satoshi's mom here. I'm here with Jake Fried, an absolute legend of the space, somebody who's been animating for over a decade, from what I understand, potentially even longer, and who's produced absolutely incredible works of animation. Like when I think of animation, I instantly think of you, honestly,
Yeah.
as like someone who's an absolute like legend and a great at what you've done and accomplished. And the work that you produce is just like mind-boggling. You've done a lot in this space for this space. You've been featured all over the world for over a decade, from what I saw on your website, like countless exhibitions and galleries and museums and even film festivals, from what I understand, picking up your work and exhibiting it. So I'm really stoked to chat with you, man, and just dig in on like who is Jake Fried and also like how it all started. Because from how I understand your work, it's these hallucinatory visuals that like I think anybody can interpret in their own way, but that tell a story from start to finish. And I'd love to just talk about like how you got started with this, the medium of ink, whiteout. How did that happen? Like, when did you get started? And yeah, I guess we just start from there.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you for all of that. Yeah, I mean, I'm just like I think of my work as an exploration, and I've just been exploring these ideas every day for years, and it's led me to all these cool experiences in life. And as an artist, for me, I've really tried to learn to like not know where things will lead you, just focus on the work, make the work, and yeah, it's such a gift. My wife has led me to all these places, and specifically, like Web3 and all these different communities that we talked about, film festivals and museums. So, let's get into it. For context, I just turned 40 this summer, so I feel like I'm at like a nice point in my personal narrative to sort of look back and look forward. But yeah, man, I'm going to adapt this for a long time. Like I really have felt like I've been an artist my whole life. It was a calling since I was a kid. Like kind of no question that's who I am. Always making art. Kind of when I had the chances, always going to art classes and camps and schools and doing all that. And yeah, so like I've been selling my art since like I was 15, so that's 25 years of kind of like I would say like a career. Um, how it started was I wanted to be an artist. I did all kinds of different artworks, but I landed on like painting, drawing, or like what I considered the most important kind of things. I played actually with graphic design and video game design as a teenager and stuff, but I always thought like, big large scale oil painting was like what I was going to do. And I went to school for that and I studied art history. And yeah, it's kind of like the evolution of technology and a culture and my living situations. But I started to rework my paintings a lot. And I've always, like I was saying, considered art making like a discovery process. And I realized like, wow, I really like reworking these paintings. I started to record myself, every stage of the painting, seeing how they changed. And this was just around, the early 2000s when I was playing with Photoshop a lot. I was on the internet and I was, social media soon after that and streaming video with YouTube. And it was like, I went from wanting to putting my paintings in galleries to like, wow, most of my art is being shared online. I can bring movement into these paintings because I'm showing the evolution of them. And there's sort of a very organic evolution to like living in a city, not having a lot of space to paint, to like, wow, making these smaller scale, like really detailed drawings and paintings and reworking them over and over, uploading these animations online and sort of getting attention to that and being like, I honestly, even still to today, like when someone calls me an animator, or like, it's like, I'm a painter more than an animator, even though like I am an animator and I teach animation and animation is my passion, but it really all comes from like, I love to draw and paint and do it over and over again and bring movement to it. And now that we live in this digital age where visual culture is shared so much more quickly, we didn't even talk about like smartphones, like this all happened in my 20s and 30s, like everybody's online, everybody has a digital screen in their pocket. Like it just came obvious to me, like being a painter in the 21st century looks like what I'm doing, in my opinion. Um, so we can go in so many different directions, but basically, yeah, my work got attention. I won awards. I got a lot of teaching gigs from it, and film festivals, and gallery shows, and working concerts and TV shows, and yeah, I've just been sort of like it's a thread that's being unraveled. But generally, it's all just hand drawn, hand painted on paper pieces that take me a really long time, and yeah.
Dude, it's so cool to hear you talk about how it's unfolded. So like you said you started out and it was more static images that you were making. It wasn't just straight into making, stacks of these images into animations.
Yeah, I mean, on a deeper level, um, I realized that like I don't like this idea of the final image, which is kind of weird. Most artists you think are approaching making an object or making a thing from start to finish, and then it's done and that's it. I like love the process of sort of like finding something and changing it and rearranging it. And for me, like a big breakthrough for me was like I don't need to resolve this image like as a painter or as an illustrator. Like just seeing where it goes and where it leads and watching it transform. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what art making is for me. Like that's kind of the message of my work. It's about the evolution or like this sort of like this flow. So I did get a point where I was frustrated as a painter where I was like, I like the way it looks. Let me fuck with it. I like that. Let me fuck with it. I like that. It's like I like all of these iterations of it, and almost like the way it's changed is what I'm into. Not so it's clearly like reading between the lines, or like no single image is as it's like the way it changes. And my work can be compared to like it's process based. Like I'm showing you what my work ultimately is like showing you the thought process of something changing over time, and that's what the work is. And recently I've been doing these flip books a lot more, and thinking about social media and the way the work is displayed. But like, oh, I'm showing the flip book that I just made. Now I'm showing you what it looks like when I scanned it. Now I'm like coloring it in digitally, and I'm showing you what that looks like. And it's like the animation is cool, the work is cool, but what's almost more interesting is like seeing the way I'm starting with just like a sketch or an idea and watching how it evolves and grows and changes. And yeah, that's what it's all about for me, man. Just finding a reason to get up every day and be excited about what I'm doing, and really discovering something. Like I like the alchemy of it with the animation specifically, where you're making it in frames and parts, and then you watch it, and it's like there's a magic to it. There's an unexpected quality to it. To me, it's like it's uh it's an
Mm-hmm.
illusion, right? Like it's like I'm creating illusions where it's like, whoa, I did this and it made this feeling, and I'm playing with different like kind of psychological states with my viewer by manipulating shapes and colors over time. Like I just find it really interesting, and yeah, animation really lights my brain up like as a method of creativity. Um, and I've always told myself like, especially when I first started, because I was like, I'm a painter, but this is like a fun thing I'm fucking with. And now that like, here we are, and it's like I still tell myself like, if I get bored of this, man, just like you can do whatever you want. Like don't like pigeonhole yourself as a creative. Like I also make the music for my work, and like I'm really interested in sound design as its own art form. But I'm always telling myself like, you have to be genuinely like authentically excited about what you're doing, or like that gut check. I think is I'm always questioning like, am I doing what I'm truly like jazzed about, or am I trying to be something because I think that's who I should be, or like, am I trying to make work because I think I don't want to make work. I want to make work that surprises me. I don't want to make work that I think I'm supposed to make. I want to like find it. And that is the daily battle of like always pushing. So
Wow.
yeah.
Lots of golden nuggets there that I want to touch on. So first is the process. The part of being an artist that you're not just thinking like, okay, time to sit down, work, put in the time, and like get to this end destination, which in life, I think like taking that and, layering that on top of anything in life, whether it's business or relationship, any type of endeavor, if you just focus on that destination, you'll get there very likely. And then you just have that moment, it's gone. So it's like, I think the key there that I'm taking is that enjoying that process is the art. And it's really, really important. And it's not really talked about as much. Like people say, enjoy the process, like the cliche term of it.
Mhm.
But like what you're saying here is like, when you sit down, it doesn't seem that you end up like, okay, like this is where I'm going. It's like sitting down is where you're going, essentially.
100%. I mean, this is what I think everything I'm doing is a metaphor for life. And it feels very obvious to me when I'm doing it because like just the last 2 days, I've literally been coloring shapes like page by page and going into this meditative state of like repeating. I mean, animation requires a lot of focus and repetition
Right.
and delayed gratification to like just see anything happen. And so I'm always reminding myself like this, this is such a lesson for like how to be and how to live. Like focus, get into it, like lose yourself in it, and don't think about the end results. Like enjoy the present, being present right here, right now. And I do think, yeah, when I'm cutting in the studio and I'm working, it's a very conscious, like I'm like, I am present right now. I am like putting my everything into this one thing. And like that alone is kind of the meaning of it, right? Like having, like creating a space to do something like that. But yeah, I also think like with anything like raising kids or like athletics, it's like, it's not about winning the world championship. It's not about the kid turning 18 and being like fully well-rounded. It's like the day-to-day, like getting there and like getting better and like giving it your all, that run that morning or like when you're like, with your kids, like this is it. This is like, this is life right now here. I'm not working towards something to get there. It's like, I'm here right now being present. So yeah, that's really important for me. And I do think the way I work teaches me patience, teaches me to like realize I don't know everything. I give myself to something bigger. Like trusting the process is a cheesy statement, but like it's not when you think of that idea of like when you actually feel it, where it's like I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know who I am, like what is going on, but it's like I believe the process has worked for me before. Like all you got to, if you trust the process, you'll be okay. And it is sort of like letting go, control. Um, which again is like to be, I think, like fully enlightened or like to really be like present is to like let go of your preconceptions, to like give yourself to fate or like, not like sort of like don't be so tightly wound or like trying to control everything because you can't. And that's, yeah, so this work
Yeah.
really helps me do that.
Wow. I love that. I love how the theme that, after talking over the last month, I just started this pod, talked to some really cool people. And the theme that I notice is truly giving yourself to the work and not really having an end point of knowing like this is where I'm getting to. Like I remember seeing a quote from you actually that was like, I love finding the process along the way. Like a really good project is not like, hey, this is the project I'm going to build. And then you sit down and you build it and then it's done and it's a huge success. It's sitting down, realizing, okay, this isn't going to work. And then doing this other thing. And then you do that. And then you're like, okay, and then this would actually be a little better. And then you kind of keep tweaking until you end up getting to this place. But all along, you kind of like, I mean, at least myself, when I sit down and work, I don't really remember even doing it. It's almost like I kind of like black out. And then it's just, there's a lot of repetition, especially if you're doing a lot of frames and you do thousands, right? So like when you sit down, like, do you feel like you zone out and then you kind of finish and even you are surprised by the work?
Yeah. Um, I don't, it's like I'm not zoning out, I'm zoning in. That's the
Right,
way it feels.
right.
Where it is beyond words. Like the decisions I'm making, the things I'm thinking, like so gut level. And I do think it is like you're a tastemaker, like every little increment along the way, every little line I'm making, the major choices I'm making. And yeah, through making it, I'm discovering my taste and what I want to say and who I am. But yeah, I've been very clear, like the last few months, like again, I was making these really bold black and white flip books. To be honest, like I'm always going through changes in my life, but like I have 2 kids now. Uh, so my second is like 9 months. So like my whole life has changed and schedule, and like there's a lot of the way I want to create and the way I can create like has changed. And I was like, I need to do these really quick, expressive, like bold movement pieces, mainly because like that's all I could get out of myself, and that's kind of where I feel like I'm at right now. And then I made a bunch of them, and then I was like, wow, they're more interesting when they're juxtaposed against each other. And then I started to like arrange them, and then I started to think like, well, if I make a body of work from this or a print from this and play with that, and then all of a sudden I had this like really elaborate like labyrinth of expression that's like so dope. And yeah, no, going into it, I had no idea what I was doing, and looking back now, yeah, to be honest, it's like I'm so I think it's all good. Like I guess that's the best when you make work and you're like, this is good. Then you're like, I'm good at something. I'm like doing something here. I'm making something here. It's very exciting, right? It's like it's not stupid. It really is that stupid because like I see I'm working with my daughter. You know, who's 4. She draws a picture and she's like, you can see. It's like I made this for nothing, and like look at what I did, and it's like, yeah, dude, that's exactly what I feel every day too. It's more complicated, but not really. Where it's just like that feeling of pushing is what it's about. Like and I think I'm really hard on myself and trying really hard. And I've been doing this for a long time, so I think I feel a sense of like outperforming myself and improving. And so that level of challenging myself and pushing myself it is a zoning in. And again, I think it can be easy for other metaphors like athletics, where it's like you're pushing yourself harder than you had before. And like a lot of it is about like shutting off the rational brain or like the idea of self at all, and like getting into the rhythm, like trusting the rhythms that you know work and that get the best results. Again, this idea of like kind of letting go, locking in, and it doesn't feel like it's kind of hard. Words are hard to describe. It's a sense of losing yourself or like really inhabiting yourself. Um, but it is an idea that like a lot of other like the noise disappears and and I think again that's what a lot of art is for me, and viewing it also is just like there's a lot of chaos and anxiety and racing thoughts and feeds and images and stresses and um, any moment in life where you can like, and I think if you could, hopefully that my work is kind of about that too. Like it's a hypnosis. It draws you in. It's when I'm making it, it does that, and hopefully when people view it, it's sort of like it's a singular focus sort of thing where you can like hopefully have that sort of transcendent like I'm in this thing. I've lost myself in this thing. You know what I mean? Hopefully a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do a really good job of explaining that too. I know that putting it into words is not like just a simple thing to do because it's so complex and deep, and it is a visceral thing that you feel more than it is something that you can just explain in an A to Z fashion. And I'm curious, like now that you have a second child, congratulations, by the way.
Thanks.
How how do you feel like what do you feel like you've learned from having kids in relation to your art?
Yeah, a lot. Well, I'll say I've been an educator my whole like adult life, and it's been a big part of my practice and career. And a lot of it has been working with kids, and I love kids. I think again
That's
because it
dope.
reminds me of like the headspace I like to be in. It's very playful. Um, they're they're not constrained by like what you're supposed to do, and especially with art making and talking about art, like it's obviously very unpretentious because they have no pretenses. And I taught in a museum K through 12 for like a decade, and I think I got so much out of that because you're just dealing with like these fresh minds. There's no right or wrong answer. You're discussing a lot of different artwork. They have very little context of history, and so it's to me it's a very like authentic human being. It's like you can sort of see it. I also, as a college professor and taught adults, like somewhere along the way, right? We sort of we know who we are. We have an identity, or we have
Right.
we have we're self aware to a bad way, right? So I do like being around kids, and I like creative play and playing. And I also think like people are really angsty and emotional, and as adults we try to hide that. And with kids, it's just like very like I'm extremely happy right now, or like I'm super pissed off, and it's some matter of the fact I really like it's refreshing. Um, anyway, so I like that. I will say too, like I talked about this before, but it's again with the flip books and the work I made when my first daughter was born, like a simplification of symbolism. And like, what is art? Like this last thing I'm doing is like it's literally like it is a sketch, but like it's cool, and I think that there's a lot of deep qualities to it. But like it's just shapes and colors moving around. Like it's like that's kind of what art is. Like it's like I've gone like full circle to just like back with my kids. It's like it is just kind of about like shapes and colors and transformation. And I'm reading so many fairy tales and these like early myths with my 4-year-old, and it's like, what is a story? Like what is art? Like what is this about? And it's very clarifying when it's like dance and music and reading and drawing with a kid, where I'm really, to me, that's like it's reinvigorating. It's like, oh, the basics, the essentials, like it, like art serves a certain purpose, and there are structures to it and rules to it, and yeah, especially now with the baby again, like what is she seeing? Like what visuals are interesting to her, and like what do I see in the kind of toys and books and art that is made for kids these age. And I think a lot of that, like so much of thinking about visual information and illusion and narrative and uh, emotion in art, it's all there like very early on. Um, and so that's what I'll say. Like I'm really inspired by that right now, and I think like I haven't thought about this so much, but like my work is I have some cool big projections coming up at like different fairs and like big outdoor events, and it's like my work is cool for adults and kids for the same reason, but adults can bring like a a whole lot more baggage and like philosophy to it. But like the kids still like it still hits like this is cool, and it's just like the kids don't need a big explanation to know that this is cool and to kind of get what I'm doing. And I like that. For me, art, I've always, even though I'm like academically trained and like worked in a museum and professor and all that stuff, like to me, art should be a super accessible, and um, even like contemporary fine art, like teaching in a museum, like you can tell when it's like this art hits, or like, yeah, this is only interesting because I'm telling you this long story. And even then, it's like it's so conceptual. The kids are kind of like, oh yeah, wow. It's like I've always want like like I'm a studio artist. I like making stuff that like hits all ages, and so yeah, it's been so cool with especially my older daughter now getting old enough to like she sees what I'm doing, and like we're talking about it, and we're making art together every day, and she's you know doing theater camp and art camp and music camp this summer, and like um, the fact that I can share that with her, yeah, makes me it's a beautiful life. It's very cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. Do they want to be like you? Do they want to be an artist like when they grow up?
At that age, I don't think they know at all. They want to be everything and do everything. But yeah, I do think like I think I'm a cool dad. Like she gets to see my lifestyle and being an
For
artist, and
sure,
like
man.
every day what I'm doing is like I'm drawing. Yeah, like I'm drawing for my job, and like I'm talking to all these people because they want to know what I'm doing, and like she sees my art, and that like we have this really cool lenticular print that I made last year that's up in the house, and moves when you walk by, and she's just like,
Oh, that's sick.
yeah, she's like, this is so cool, and like makes I don't know, it's just uh, I think it's cool to share that with them, and yeah, I mean, you can talk about the space more, but like I've been traveling for stuff in the space, and to like go on trips with her and be like, yeah, we're here for this, and uh, it's very cool. And she is a great. I mean, I know a lot of parents say this and everything like that. My daughter is super creative and is a really talented artist, and I'd like to think she's getting like one art education from me every day. Like whether she decides to do it professionally or not, like she's gonna have a lot. Like she's literally at the museum with my wife right now, like while we're talking. So she's being exposed, which I obviously think is super healthy and gonna enrich her life no matter what she does.
So you said that you're very involved in educating and you've been doing that for a while. And it seems like you're very involved at the museums that are nearby you as well. And I think that education is such a cool aspect of what we're doing as artists and creators because the next generation, I feel, is just inherently, natively digital. They they understand digital stuff just already. And so I think that digital art is so inevitable in that way. And like, for example, I have a Dolly museum nearby me, and they did an exhibit where there was like grades 6 through 9, I think, or 6 through 8. And it was like 500 something artworks, and over half of them were on digital mediums. And, I think it's sick to make an impact on that next generation. So what you're saying about like, seeing that they have just a fresh perspective when they look at things, they're not looking at it with this idea of like who I am, and they're able to create from that place. And I feel like when we create as artists, that's kind of what we're stepping back into ultimately. When we are in flow and we zone in, we're shedding this identity. And I think your work is really like you're able to see that you're doing that with your work. And I'm curious, like, do you do any like um, hallucinogens or anything like that as far as like microdosing or anything that gets you to see these different visions, or like, how do you feel about psychedelics?
Yeah, let me cover the first thing really quickly. That yeah, having taught in the animation department at art school and working with kids for so long, like yeah, digital art, it's already here. Like every young person who has has access to a tablet and computer and tech is using it more than pen on paper. Like, and most of my students in animation work with digital tools, and that animation, I've seen it go from a really niche major at art schools to being one of the most, if not the most, the biggest department. Because students in the last 20 years, you just think about what why did they go to art school? Because they were watching, like, at least a lot of my students, like they were watching like Studio Ghibli films, or like they were watching Rick and Morty, or they're playing video games. Like that's their, or like music videos, like that's what the art that they're exposed to and excites them, and is current, and like fashion and hip hop and um, painting and sculpture. Yeah, like obviously timeless, but like there's, when I was in art school in the 90s and early 2000s, like those were still very like kind of niche things, and now it's because of the internet, honestly, and technology and cell phones and the way we consume culture. So I like anyone doubting like digital art is going to be very important, and in my opinion, just sort of like moving image art is still finding its way. It takes a long time in sort of like the big academic, historical sense, but like it's already happening now, and that's what, like a lot of the most exciting creative work, especially by people like under 40, or is online and in the space we're in right now. So some people don't realize, because they talk about the trad world or whatever, like we're in it right now. Like this is like art and culture that's happening right in front of us, and most, I think, interesting visual artists are playing in the social media space and just digital kind of like creative tools. Hallucinogenics, I did do a lot as a kid, and like um, out of body or like spiritual. I'm a spiritual person. Like my work is about like exploring my soul and my spirit, and like, a lot of the symbolism and the mythology that I'm exploring in my work is to get into your like deeper psychic self. Like I don't do a lot of. I would say my work isn't like extremely topical or like kind of like realistic. It is about higher states of meaning and planes of meaning. And a lot of people react to my work being like about mental states and kind of feeling like inside their mind. So again, even like that piece is like, it's about shapes and colors moving around. There's a quality to my work where it's like, this is, a lot of people comment and like, this is what it looks like in my mind. Like, this is like, and it's like, yeah, my work was a lot about sort of mental states. So it lends itself to dreams and hallucinogenic sort of experiences. Personally, I will say like I did do acid and mushrooms at like in my teenage years, early 20s. I feel like I had a lot of really coming of age moments and like profound kind of transcendent like journeys, and a lot of what I've learned as an adult and through my life is like it's not just a work-life balance, it's sort of like a work-spirit-life balance where um, I get a lot of that juice through art making and like meditation and, help my kids and helping others and teaching, where I don't feel the need to like do hallucinogenics as much. But I do feel like it's still a part of me and like I'm not something, I just don't need it as much. And I do think like that's,
right.
there is sort of like a whole like I'm really like again as like a spiritual thing. Like I teach as an academic like instructor, but then I do feel like there's like an art therapy quality to like my work and like the way I approach art making. And I do think I'll just say for people like there's a healthy level to do it. But I know a lot of creative people are interested in hallucinogenics and do it. It's very common to see certain patterns where like you can't do it too much, and you basically need to like learn through those experiences, like and carry them through in your life. But there's a lot of value in having like a very disciplined, healthy, down to earth lifestyle and relationships, and that you can sort of go. You can't live in the spirit world full time. It is really like a balance, and that is the way I see my life, where it's like my art making allows me to have like really meditative, deeply spiritual experiences on a daily basis in a very kind of safe, healthy, controlled way. And that's,
Mhm.
yeah. Stop there.
Man, I love it. I absolutely love it. Your mind is incredible. Your soul, fucking dope, man. Like, truly. And I love that you pour it into your work in such a natural way that's like so like from the heart. And it's very obvious. And especially when you speak, you can hear that and understand that. So your students for sure are getting really like full class education for sure. And I'm curious, like when you say meditation, do you do like the traditional form of meditating, or do you mostly get that from sitting down and being involved in your work?
Yeah, most of it just, I mean, honestly, like time. I don't know if you have any kids, but
Not right now,
okay, yeah, with
but
2 kids right now, like, and working parents, like, just to have the time to like um, work out, take a shower, like take time to like read a book. It's like there's actually very little time, and then obviously focus on my work, which is so important to me. That yeah, most of my meditation really is like my practice drawing, and I do think like a lot of what I'm doing, like if I'm taking my dog for a walk, like I'm thinking about the work I'm making. Like it's always with me, like, and I do think that's sort of a meditation, like having this sort of like thing that you're always focusing on. The creative lifestyle is really a really healthy thing for like, yeah, I think like the mind and the spirit, where I always have a thing that I'm working on. So I'm always sort of like thinking about it and feeling it. and it does keep me kind of more centered, I think. But yeah, when I'm drawing, like I think it's probably a better experience than a lot of people who do like transcendental meditation have, because I really am like locked into like every mark I make. It's like what people say when they're rock climbers, and it's like I can't fuck this up. I mean, my work is it's not digital when I'm making it, like, and there's no going back. I'm reworking the same thing, so it's like you have to be present with this thing. You need to like have clear breaths. You're always focused on. You're like watching the line. You're like moving the line. And I'm really like I'm if you animate, people understand this, but like I'm watching things move frame by frame. I'm kind of always going back and forth. I'm always thinking about it's like so, and then like when I'm working on my pieces, like the two pieces, the one-on-ones I have up listed right now, like they're 1 minute pieces that took me months to make. Um, I'll have like it's one piece of paper and I'm animating it straight ahead. I'll have like a dozen different things that are transforming in the image over the course of like 24 30, so it's like I have to keep track of all these different I'm setting myself up to have to keep track of all these little moving things and variations, and it's this overwhelming feeling of like do I understand where I'm at, what's happening everywhere, do I understand like what I have to do here, and it really isn't like I think that's kind of how my work evolved to look the way it does. Like, how can I create these this process where I have to get everything? Yeah, I'm not a brain scientist, but it does feel like every region of my brain has to sort of be doing something at the same time. And it's like that sort of harmony of like what it really does feel like very moment. Like whereas most of daily life you're just like using different regions of your brain for different activities. So that is when I've done drawing, and I felt this since as a kid. This is how I knew I kind of wanted to be an artist, honestly. Like I remember I went like as a teenager, I would go and paint. I actually got lucky enough to go to an art high school, like a boarding school for art, where like I was like in college, like in high school. And so I'd go and paint from like 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. every day in my studio space. Wow. And I remember like I would come out of it and I'd just be like completely like wiped as a human being. Like I don't know. I like forgot who I was when I went into that studio, like, and again, I keep comparing to athletics because it was the way that I feel like if I go for a long run, where it's like somewhere along the way, like I forgot I went for a run. I was just like and now I'm back and I'm like, what happened? Like, and it's that, and I remember feeling like, oh my God, like I'm like going somewhere. Like I'm actually like transporting somewhere here. And like, it was like, when you're a teenager, it felt so like profound. And I'm still having that today, where it's like I know I worked as hard as I could that day. I like left everything on it. Like I'm like exhausted. That's what it feels like to me. It's like a spiritual, meditative like exercise of like extreme focus.
Yeah.
And this is why it works for me because again, I do other forms of meditation, but I have the classic problem that everyone has with meditation of like trying to stop the wandering thoughts and get it back. You're sitting with yourself, do nothing, be here now. No, my mind, its natural instinct is just like, right? Like I can feel the fighting. And with when I'm working, it's like I don't have to fight. It's like the natural fight is the work, like, and I can sort of, so, yeah, as another teacher, I see this like there should be more like if they hooked up diodes to my brain when I'm working, I'm positive it would look like whatever, like the Tibetan monk, right? Like
all firing. Yes.
It's not firing at all. I don't like that. You kind of were saying before. It's like it's zoning in or zoning out, but it's not a normal brain state. Which again, like you're saying, relates to like I think dreaming or like like that is what's happening when you take hallucinogens or you're in a REM cycle. Like it's the same brain, it's the same person, but it's like in this super state.
Mm-hmm. And like you mentioned too, like when you take a run, like you lose yourself in a sense in it, but you're zoned in. And like the same with psychedelics, it's like you go on that trip and basically you take that round trip back and you're back in your body at some point. But like in that time, you're just on that journey. And those parallels are definitely like in making art, in, you know, being an athlete of any sort, working out, exercise. When you like pour yourself into that moment, it's like you're going somewhere, but then you end up like just coming back at some point and you end up being like, wow, like, and that's where like creating, I think it's almost like a workout. When you're done, you're like, hell yeah, like I did that. You could see what you accomplished, but then you're also like exhausted to some sense. But like at the same time, it's not exactly the same as that. It's kind of hard to explain, I guess.
Yeah.
But you know, being somebody who's, you know, busy in life, you have kids, you have a family, you're an educator, and you're a full-time artist. Do you find time every single day to make art? And how much time do you spend when you sit down in a session?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the other level. It's like I have to do it. Um, not to use exercise as the metaphor. Let's just go with it because we are. But it's sort of like if you exercise a lot and you don't exercise, you're feeling like shit. Like it sort of becomes a routine. You feel like shit, right? And you sort of like. So I don't feel good when I'm not working, and because it is like my mental health. It's a whole other journey, but like I used to take medication again as a young person. Many people in my generation in the States went through this journey with like, medications for depression or hyperactivity. It's like, I'm not on anything. I know that I need to do it. Like I actually have to do it to remain healthy. It's like my medicine. It's an important ritual. But yeah, there are times um, in my life, especially when I'm traveling or things like the summertime right now when kids are at home all the time. Yeah, I can't do it as much. And yeah, I'm doing it when they're not like this is my Friday afternoon where I have time carved out for conversations and calls. And every night I got to draw for at least an hour. Um, what happens is I always tell myself, not always, but especially as I get older, where it's like, as a young person, I felt such a desire to prove myself. It wasn't as much like I have to draw, like it's good for me. I have to draw. Sort of like I need to I'm like, there's not enough time, and I'm getting older. I'm not. I got to get better. I got to show people what I'm made of. Every day felt so like I'm running out of time. I feel more now where I think I have less to prove, but what ends up happening is I'm just like, oh, fuck around. I kind of have these flip flops. Like I'll just fuck around with something. I need to do something, and then like immediately I'm like, oh, what about what? I can't help myself by getting like drawn into it, and then I have these things that I'm excited about, and then I do think again that's another like metaphor for life, but it's like I always have something I'm excited about. Like I've set up this system where it's not like I have to go work today because I work every day. It's like I'm genuinely excited to play with this thing that I started tinkering with, and I can't wait to get back to it. And that's the way it feels for me. It's like you get better at this as you get older and you have kids. It's like I have to go to bed now because like I need to sleep because I don't want to be like a monster tomorrow or like fall apart. But like I really don't want to sleep right now. But, like I need to go eat lunch, but you know, um, I used to be like the guy who like I couldn't eat or sleep. I just like but now it is always like I have something I'm excited to get back to. That's good. That's the meaning of life. Like you're excited about something. This is what I've been telling my 4-year-old. Like there's a book she wants. She's going to get it next week. It's like she can't stop talking about it. And it's like I'm like, this is good. You have something to live for. Like you're acting like you can't wait. It's like actually the can't wait quality is that's what it's about. Because the minute you get the book, you're going to read it, you're going to have it, and like 2 days you won't think about it again. But like right now, you're so excited about that, and that like I really do think that is a lot of what life is about. Is like finding ways to always have something to look forward to and be excited about. And so that's the way I think about it now, where I'm working as much as I can, and when I look back, I was like, wow, I never feel like I'm doing enough, but I'm doing so much. I have so many things like,
Sure.
yeah, and so that's again trusting the process. Like I know, like I don't need to know what I'm doing for the next 10 years. Like I can't help myself. Shit's gonna happen because that's the way it's unfolded. It's like there's always something is coming up or is going to happen. But I did, again, yeah, my early career was always like, I got to make shit happen. How do I get shit? Like, what's happening here? Thankfully now I feel like I really, do have a groove of like, there's always something to do and going on.
And you're excited about it. Like, that's so key, because like in the beginning, like you said, if you're making something and you're like, wait, gut check, am I stoked on making this, or
Yes.
am I doing it because I think that I should be, because this guy's doing it and he's having success, or that guy or girl? And that is huge for any artist listening, because if you're excited about your work, and then it's a natural thing that's going to unfold, I think. So
I lost you there for just a second.
Oh, sorry. Basically, I said that if you're excited about it, it's going to naturally unfold.
Yes.
And then that's where the magic happens.
That's everything. Yeah, being yourself, like that as an artist, like you do have to find that, because if you make art for any other reason than like your own curiosity or your own personal journey or challenge, like it's gonna get corrupted and it's gonna be way more difficult. And I've dealt with that too. Like, so that's part of my journey too. Where like I started making this work that was kind of blowing up online, and people were excited about the animation. And I was in my mid-20s, and I got a lot of opportunities to like do commissioned work or like work for studios. And that was how like people made money. Like again, we're kind of in this new era where artists like can practically kind of be full-time artists, but like back then it was like, how do I make a living while I'm making experimental animations and painting and all that stuff? And it was like, no, I'd rather teach and just like have a secure income and do it like as an artist. The minute I started doing, I've done some and I still do collaborations and stuff, but it's like it's very clear to me. It's like I'm making something for this project, and there's like expectations, and there's actually a deadline, and there's there's the expectation of like I'm Jake Fried the artist. They are hiring me. Who am I? What do I think I am? Like they want me to make this, and it's like you start to like overthink what you're making, versus when I'm making my art, most of the stuff that people are familiar with and what I do is sort of like when I'm making, like I was saying before, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm very comfortable with that, because then I feel like I'm not saying this is who I am. I'm not saying this is what I think is really cool. Like this is who I am. Like this, it's authentic. I didn't have to like, right? It's like I'm not embarrassed of this. Like this is what happened, and like this is like the result of my experience. Versus a lot of second guessing when you're making something for a project. Which is it's a healthy challenge for me, honestly, because and it's good to like be like, oh, I can be self-aware about who I am as an artist and what kind of work people expect of me. And a lot of it is like I'm aware of my audience. I saw this quote was on my timeline today. It was sort of like, great artists like don't care about their audience. They're like, you're a better artist unless you care about your audience. So like, there's something there, which is true, that like you can't give a fuck, like, and like, and I've seen this a million times where it's like people always ask you to do something you've already done. They'll never ask you to make something you've never done before. So it's like up to me to show them what I can do. And that's the way I sort of experience my life now, where it's sort of like, all my best work is going to be because I made it for me. And people are going to be like, they like that, make me something like that. But if I only did projects for other people, or, I would never, no one would push me to the next level, or no one would help me evolve. And so it is sort of a backward looking thing where it's like, I did this. But that is something I found in the commercial world and as an educator, where it's like, I found a process that's very hard to mimic. Just because of the quality of the process is so crazy. And like, that's been kind of very good for me professionally, where, if you want something that looks like it's going to work, like, you have to hire me. Or if you want to like learn how to like, do experiment, hand drawn stuff, like, I think I have a really like unique approach. Because I decided to like prioritized my own independent artistic journey over the last 20 years rather than getting a safer job.
Yeah, you took those risks on yourself and now you've lived that. And there's a lot of value in that in so many ways as an educator, as a creator, as someone who would get commissioned for work, who has a unique, very unique style. And I'm surprised if Whiteout hasn't reached out to you yet for like an official like #1 customer award. um,
Yeah, that is again talking about like these days. Maybe I think about it, but like again in my 20s and 30s, like I would be like I would not do that because I don't want to identify as doing like commercial work, and I don't want to do advertisement. Like even my commissions that I've done have been like less like, well, I mean some have, but like less like direct advertising. But yeah, I bought a lot of Bic Whiteout in the past 15, 20 years. That's for sure.
I want to ask you some questions too, because I don't want to run too far over time, and I'm really enjoying this. I know you are a busy guy, but I'm happy to chat as long as you're able to. But basically, I want to kind of switch to asking you about like the technical side for artists. A lot of people who listen to this pod are artists on their come up, people trying to make this happen, trying to be full time, who are full time. A lot of people
Yeah.
are having success as well, and I think like I want to ask you about that process. Like, what would you say to an artist who's getting started or an artist on their path and in the game, how to succeed in this game and to be happy?
Yeah. This is a really long. First of all, I could go probably for another 30 minutes.
Perfect.
But
That sounds great.
yeah, this is a long conversation. It's really hard. I had my own experience, and then I taught again for a long time. And one of the classes I taught were seniors in undergrad, portfolio class for animation majors, which is basically like it's the last semester of your senior year. Like, let's prepare to apply for jobs. Or like, what are you going to do when you graduate? And so much of art school, most artists know this, is like they don't prepare you at all for like actually being an artist in real life. It's all about, which it's good, right? It shouldn't be like about making money as an art. Like you can go to a trade school for all that stuff, but like the practical, it's like, okay, let me give you for each of you, like, let's come up with like, how do you describe who you are? Like, what do you want to do? What is like kind of your brand? What's your personal narrative? There's people hear people talking about in this space every day. Like you have to sell yourself to get a job. You have to sell yourself to people want to, you want your work noticed to get into festivals. Like when you're applying your thing to a festival, like they also want your bio. They want to know who you are, and you kind of have to like talk about your work a little bit. Every artist hates this. They're like when you start out, like every artist realizes like, oh shit, like if I can't just like make the art and walk away, like it's part of it. It's me, and I kind of have to like help people understand, like give them context for what I'm doing. And that's very obvious when you think about it, but to a young artist, it's like very confusing. And because let's just talk about true like artists who deserve to make it. Good young artists, emerging artists who should make it. Because I think there's a lot of artists like your work's just not good enough. Like you can do everything right, but like if the work isn't good and you're not really actually fully realize like what I think of as artists, like you're not gonna nothing you do is gonna help. So maybe that's my first point. Focus on the work. The work is the most important thing. There's no shortcut to making like undeniably good work, and that's going to help you more than anything else in the world. It's going to help you more than getting a degree in the school I'm teaching you at, or like no matter what you're doing. Same thing with like having big sales right now or not, or like being on the right platform or whatever. Like if your work is undeniably like interesting and good, you are a really interesting. Like this is where it's like subjective. Like what's the word? Like your work is special. Like and a lot of people generally kind of agree with that, and you have people who are like really into what you're doing. Like then we can talk about like how to manage your career and think about it. But like before that, like you've got to make the best work you can. And personally, I feel like yeah, there are a lot of like really gifted young people, but I do think it takes a long time. It's different than athletics. You're not going to peak when you're 18 or you're 21. Like And for most, artists, like they're in school and their 20s, I think is like the really important period where like, obviously you can become an artist later in life and go through this too, but I do think it takes a solid like 10,000 hours, like a good decade of like really pursuing your craft and finding your voice, to get really good at something. So like that's the most important thing. And again, when I teach, I say this in school because I know you're not going to have like I teach like I'm I treat them that my students like I treat myself as an artist. So like you're not going to have anyone kicking your ass every day, or like you're
Right.
not going to have anyone to like who's going to expect to see what you did last night in the morning. Like now you're on your own, and it's
Yeah.
people don't realize what being an artist is like. Right, like you have no boss, you have no one waiting to see what you did. You like, can you hustle? Do you care enough? It is such. I really have to emphasize this, like the battle, the personal like sacrifice, the dedication. Um, that's the hardest part. And then yeah, knowing how to manage your career, like what I said for my like get a job. So this is like don't rely on your art to live, like especially if you're young and just starting out, because you can see you see it what's happening. I see it in my life, and not in the Web3 space, and all the time, but I see it in the Web3 space specifically, where like you're going to start making decisions and making work for money. And
Yeah.
this is so hard to talk about in this space because it is a lot about money and financial stuff and gambling. But it's like I really like if I made art for money, like if that was like the I do sell my art. I do make money from my art. But it's like, I
Of
guess
course.
I went through something long enough, or like just psychologically, I'm not making the art for money. And so, like, but yeah, if I was, like, it corrupts to me, like, the purity of the journey, like, or the authentic thing you're trying to do. So, like, um, find a way to understand that, like, it's okay to make money and be an artist at the same time. Again, like I've done so many different jobs, and still do other things to make money. So let me talk about that, making money. Like pre-Web3, like obviously I've done well in Web3 and there's different opportunities here, but like teaching, um, grants and awards, like we need to, like in animation specifically, or like I'm in Massachusetts, I won cultural council grants. That's actually something I've done also that I love, but just kind of like being an educator, but different, but being on juries. So like I've been a jury for the state to pick other artists to award money. I've been on film festival juries where it's cool. You get to be a tastemaker, get paid to do it, and like all this stuff. Licensing is good for animation. So like I've done a lot of like, again, work that I've done for myself, put it online for free generally, and then like license it out. And I actually just had a call this week and gonna have some of my work, for visuals for a really big North American tour with like two major bands, like as mainstream as it gets.
Oh yeah.
It's like this is work I already made. It's work I own the rights to or whatever. Like, and it's like you're just paying me to use it. I get more cultural value for it. People talk about memetics a lot in this space. It's like it only adds more. That's a whole other side of my journey. But like I always put my animations online for free generally, whereas a lot of people in my industry like only put it in festivals and then try to sell it as a DVD or try to sell it as like on-demand subscriptions. It's like I've just been like put it out there, people find it, and then like I make more money from it that way, and more people see it. That's the whole point of making the art, anyways. And yeah, a lot of people steal it and use it in their concerts or on their music videos without permission, and it's annoying. But generally, it's kind of like it gets my name out there, it gets the work out there, and it's ultimately to my benefit. So my work is in CCO, but like I've seen this play out in my life where like not trying to be too controlling of the IP is like okay. Yeah, I've worked on these. So and then these big commissions where that's sort of like how I understood. So I've done like big commissions for Netflix and Adult Swim and like Harley Davidson and all these things,
Right.
and they did have to pay me a lot because I said like I don't want to do commissions. So like make it, unless you pay me a certain amount, I'm not
Right.
going to do it. And then also this idea again that like no one can kind of imitate it. So if the creative director is like, we really want this thing to look like your work, like they have to kind of go with me. But the one thing that was challenging before Web3 was like to just sell my animations like as a work of art because of the whole, there's no digital scarcity, there's no provenance.
Mm-hmm.
And that, yeah, if you buy it from a gallery, like there's not a lot of galleries really focusing on digital, experimental animation or video. And then there's just like no, but the minute like, NFTs and sort of like digital tokenization, it was like obvious for my work. So, but it was sort of like, instead of doing commissions, like I can sell my art, and I kind of know the value of my art based on like how much I'm getting paid to make stuff and license stuff. And so it was all sort of like an evolution like that. But yeah, for me, I'll say teaching has always been the like, I have a safety net where like I can make work and know that like at least I have a job. And what's cool about teaching is that it's basically an extension of my studio practice.
Right.
So I am myself the artist in the classroom. And I don't know how many people like artists in the space like went to art school, understand art school, but like my experience, like I never studied animation in school. Like I got all these jobs and like I got all these awards because of my work. And then like, right, so like I'm mentoring graduate students, and I was like, I don't have a graduate degree. Like, and when I'm teaching in the university or whatever, like, yeah, there's like obviously general curriculums and rules or whatever. It's like I'm an independent actor. Like it's my classroom. And like the main thing that I've been doing the last 5 years is like just advising like seniors for their thesis projects and stuff. It's just like one-on-one. It's basically like I'm an artist talking to other artists. It's kind of what we're doing in the space every day. But it's like part of your school is to like check in with me and go on this journey for a year. And I found that so enriching and really, I do see it as part of my artistic practice in a lot of ways. Let me just back up with artists. So you got to work your ass off. That's really important. And then you have to, be like really responsible and understand like that you are a brand. Like this is the thing where like, I don't consider myself marketing my work. Like there's that whole cliche in Web3, you got to be the artist, the salesperson, the marketer, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I'm just sharing what I'm making every day. Like I'm just being that's the way I feel. It's like being myself publicly is the marketing, like markets itself. Like, and then people like you, like what you, right? However you decided to reach out to me or whatever, it's like, I didn't decide I need to go on a bunch of podcasts and market my work. It's like, people want to talk to me. So that's I'm kind of doing it. Oh my God. It's like, and so when I'm teaching my classes, like, slowly you realize like, or I'm realizing like, I am a brand. Like I am like what I'm doing, like being present. Yeah. Like, so you do have to like understand that you are a business and a brand. And that like, again, I feel like a really complicated human being with a lot of different, no one can truly know me, but like there is a way to like give context for people about what I do, who I am, and to share my work and to get it out there. And that's a big part of my practice now. I'm hyper aware of it. Like I'm in this space that is digital art, online native, 24 hours, global community, and like it's so exciting. It's such a cool opportunity as an artist. Honestly, as an artist, it's never been a better time to share your work and get it out there and get noticed. And it's never been easier. I would say the hardest thing though, is money, man. Like nobody has money, right? Galleries, like museums, major bands I work with, even TV studios. Like the life of an artist is like nobody has money, right? Just like being a teacher, you're like it's just like, if you want money, do something else. Right? Like, I don't think people realize this. Even like, again, even like some of the most famous musicians, you'd be surprised how hard they have to hustle on tour to like make a living that like a normal like professional, white collar professional does. And like they're famous and all their work.
They have to sacrifice as well.
Yeah, like their family, like to go away, like
Exactly.
it's a huge sacrifice. It's a lot of work, and um, yeah, I feel really blessed that I found a way to like sustain my practice, and yeah, that's where I'm at. Yeah, so I'd say like for me personally, it's sort of like I have to find a way to never um, cheapen my work, who I am, what I'm doing. My art is too important to me. It's too special that like if I need to make enough to live, I'll do it with something else and I'll do something else. Like and
Wow.
that has kind of served me well. And now I do like I don't, what's happening in this space, all these artists, like what do I do? Blah blah blah. It's like just be true to yourself and be thoughtful. And like um yeah, there's a lot of opportunity, which is good, but also bad. There's a lot of opportunities to do different things, and you need to be you're the one who's in charge of elevating yourself and keeping your professionalism and making the right choices. So I'd say that's the most important probably thing I've done is like what I've said no to over the years, which I don't know if I'm like clarifying, like I said no to a lot of stuff. And I often second guess all the time, like am I saying no to great opportunities or whatever, but it always comes back to like, oh my God, it just doesn't feel like me. Or it doesn't make sense to me, or it's like, yeah, no, I just, yeah, and if all else fails, it's like I'll just make the work I want to make, and I realize again now, like I can make the work I want to make, put it out there, and uh, people really respond to my work. People like it, so it's like uh, there's a lot of safety and feeling like I'll find ways to make a living in my life and support myself and keep this going, and then, dude, once I'm dead, right? It's like I have a family to take care of, but like the work is what matters. Kind of getting back to it. Like at the end of the day, all I care about is making the best work I can, and like making sure I respect the work and have it preserved and respected after I'm gone. And like the money is just to stay alive and to keep going. It's not the goal.
That's a really awesome way of like putting this in perspective because there's so many rules for people to follow and there's so many different things that people like think that they should do or shouldn't do. And the more that I continue on this journey, the more that I realize that fuck all the rules, forget the
Yeah.
rules and start working from here and just feel the way through. And work is the most important thing. Like, make the best work possible. And as soon as we start thinking, like, how do I make money? Then it will start to kind of shift the way that we'll create. And I've definitely been impacted by that. And I'm learning through that. And the more that we can act from abundance, even if you don't have the money, you like are like, okay, look, I do need to make money. And I am going and gunning for this full-time artist thing. But like I need to like switch that off for a second while I do this work. Because if I do the work and I think about how I can make the most money from it, I'm not going to do the work that I really need to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And like the work that you're doing, for example, you're working on making your best fucking work. Like if artists out there all think about how can I make the best work that I possibly can, it would probably result in different work than if they start thinking, how can I make the money that I need to make this week? And
Yeah.
how do I pay rent, etc.
Yeah. And it's super challenging. And going back to like, if you're an artist considering even this, like just consider how blessed you are to have the opportunity to try that. But like with the majority of my students in my life, and I've seen like you, once you have a job, again, like teaching, like or whatever, like that's usually like a lot of your energy every day, and like you're devoting a lot of your life to it. Then you gotta like, when do you make art? You essentially have to have two full-time jobs. I mean, that's the way I felt my whole life. It's like I'm a full-time artist and I work full-time. Like, and only recently, or maybe not even yet, but like have like it all converge into one thing where like I really feel like I can just like do what I want and make a living from it. Um, but yeah, it's really tough, and I do feel that's the hard part for artists is like I want to make money through my art and I want to be full time. It's like it's okay to go make money and then focus on your art. Like it's harder, but yeah, like that's part of the journey. Like just don't stop. If you don't make art, then you fail. Like ultimately. And then you hear all this, and again, it's like easier said than felt. But I've been through this a long time in my life. It's sort of like, if you believe in the art you're making and other people love the art you're making and you can't make money from it, like, you're successful. Like, that is huge, man. Making good work is so hard. And finding people that love your work and care about what you're doing is so hard. The money part will come will come later, but like, it really is like, yeah. Or just do commercial work, and then you won't have time to do commercial work, and that's a fine lifestyle too. But like, if you want to be an artist, like, it's hard. And yeah, I'll just talk about like, I've seen cycles in art and with like abundance and money and not, and like all this, like, everything's always changing. So again, as this is what I tell my students too when they graduate, it's like, everything I'm telling you about, like, what to do, like, none of it mattered when I was graduating college. Like, what Facebook, my teachers didn't know what that was. And actually, I was a painter when I was in school, undergrad, and like, we were still making slides of our work, and like physical slides, and like sending catalogs of our paintings. Like, everything's changed, and by the time you're my age, everything's going to change again. So it's really like learning how to adapt and being aware. And I would say anybody who's like in this space or playing with it, you're already like got a leg up that you're like investigating what's going on here and understanding it. And that's so many artists I know, we all know artists who, or maybe we don't, but like, we're trying to get in this space or tell them about it. It's hard. A lot of them are like, it's too complicated, or I don't get it, or like, I don't want to be that active in that world. I don't want to think about it. It's too scary. It's too complicated. It's like, if you're willing to figure out new stuff like this and understand it and evolve and adapt, then like, you kind of might have the right personality and mindset to make it as an artist. So I'm fully prepared for like 5, 10 years from now, like, so many things are going to change about my work and how it's being displayed and what it means to be an artist. And like, so it's really important to never feel like you figured it out. Kind of, again, getting back to the lessons I learned through art making is sort of like, you gotta get in with the flow and be like authentic and let go and sort of see where it takes you a little bit. Because that was part of my journey too. Like, understand, it's like, maybe I'm not a painter. I'm an experimental digital animator. Like, that was not who I thought I was going to be when I wanted, when I was like a teenager. Like, but looking back, it's sort of like, it all makes sense. That's how it kind of went. So that's what's cool. Sort of like, life will tell you kind of where to go sometimes, and you sort of figure that out. But yeah, I have a lot of compassion for young artists. If you are struggling, I've been there. Like, kind of, we were saying, like, if you're really doing the work, it is emotional. It's a sacrifice. It's lonely. It's extremely frustrating. There's so many reasons to be jealous and resentful of other people. You have to deal with a lot of people trying to use you, rip you off, underpay you. People who don't like your work, people who mock what you're doing, people who call you an idiot for trying to be an artist. It's right, like, I mean, that's a whole other thing we don't talk about. Or I'm like old enough now that I've like passed that phase. It's like, how many people tell you like, what the fuck are you doing with your life? Like, this is sick, or like you're just making trippy image like videos, like that's what you do, like, or especially like, when I lived in less, or like worked with less artistic people, or people, family situations where like normies like don't get what an artist is doing at all, like, and so you have to deal with a lot of people who just be like try to kill your dreams, or right, like, don't like believe in you, and it's just it takes a lot of perseverance and dedication, and sort of like, yeah, it's hard.
It's that journey. It's a journey for ourselves. Like, I'm curious to ask you too, while we still have some time, what you feel about the importance of like contextualization with work when it comes to like the story and narrative that people are buying into when they are collecting your work. So like recently I was reflecting on this, and I realized like when people collect your work, they're actually collecting themselves mirrored in your work. They're collecting their moment of life that means something to them or sparks something within them. Even if it's as simple as that is aesthetically cool and I want it, it's something there, right?
Yeah.
And like I think that if artists master this idea in or try to or work towards mastering the contextualization of what they're making, instead of just like, okay, I made this, I'm going to put it out there and hopefully people get it, thinking about like the emotional draw, the memory that it brings out, that it will trigger like people's innate need and desire to collect. So I'm curious, what is your take on that?
Yeah, so context is very important. Again, as an educator, like a lot of what I'm doing when I'm in presenting work from the past or whatever is like, this is who this artist was. This is why their work is recognized or what they were doing that was different or how it fits in to this, the society it was made at the time. This is why, this is what it's inspired since then. Like, you can't talk about art out of context. Um, and I've seen with my like in a lot of ways, but it's very clear to me when I'm presenting my work or talking about it that people are very attracted to knowing how it was made, that it's handmade, that it's the labor that goes into it. When I stop it and show them frame by frame what I'm doing, it's like, oh, this is how it's made, and seeing how it's made, like we've been talking this whole conversation, the work is very much about how it's made. Every piece of art is. The making of the work is kind of like what the work is about, and then the making of the work leads itself to who is the artist, why are they making it, right? And like that we go from there. So yeah, to not talk about how it's made or yourself at all does a disservice to your work. That said, I am again I am one of those people who like gets really kind of bothered by, which I see a lot of contemporary art in the last 10 years, with overly conceptual work where it's like the work makes absolutely no sense without like this long, essay. It's sort of like
Right.
this is more of like more essay writing than like art making the way that I'm like an expressive, kind of like I'm an expressionist, to be frank. Like, so of course my work involves like me and like what I'm trying to say and like feel, but I also think hopefully my work like how you get the feeling without any background. But I catch myself all the time appreciating artists the more I know about them and understanding their journey and reading about them. And that's why I studied art history in school and love art history, because like essentially what I was doing there was like when you're writing about artists, you do realize like the narrative or like writing about art from the third person is as much like art making as making art. Like you're sort of like you're talking about a person's life and their work, and you're creating this narrative, and you're comparing other pieces together, and you're investigating what art is and how to understand it, and trying to recontextualize it or historicize it, and you recognize that there's like no one right answer. Like it's sort of this game, and so I do feel like as an artist, there's two minds where, like you're saying, I'm making the work, trying to not overthink it, but once I've made it, and now I'm thinking about my life, and when I'm trying to sell it, it's like this is what this is. Like this is it's
Right.
it's so kind of like obvious that you need to do that. But I'm not. I'll say this: I'm not attracted to it when it's like it's overly like self-aware. Like this photograph is a landscape photograph, and it's whatever, it's beautiful or whatever. But like if you're telling me about your life story or some journey, it's like, are you telling me about the work? Or are you trying to like manipulate my emotions to put things in this work that I'm not getting from it? If that makes sense. It's sort of like you're doing the job of the historian or the critic. And it's like, as the artist, I think you should try to avoid that a little bit. Let other people kind of contextualize your work in that way. So I do try to be like, matter of fact, like this is how I made it, why I made it, or what I was thinking about it, feeling, but never like you like never going like so expert, like getting way away from like the actual piece itself. Let the piece breathe and have people see themselves in it.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah. No, I didn't mean to cut you off because that was great. And like I think like adding a dash of the contextualization via writing is great. Maybe even a little more than a dash. Like, but not like the whole meat of the whole thing is okay, so this is my life story, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's why I made this work. This is how it works. That's why these pieces are there. You want it to stand alone to be able to tell its own story, but then give it a little bit of that extra like spin on it that like makes people be like, holy shit, like that hits. I feel like that's what I'm taking from that.
yeah. Well, let's go even bigger. The bigger picture as an art, like we are saying before, like don't care about your audience or whatever. Art making is about you. You're the artist. So again, I'm an expressionist. A lot of my work is like self-referential, and that's kind of when we're talking about art. Kind of what I'm referring to is sort of artists who have like independent voices and are putting their message out into the world. Um, you you shouldn't entirely know what you're doing, and you can describe kind of what you're trying to do or how you're approaching it. But when I hear an artist being like, "This is why I did this, and then I did this, and this is why," blah blah, and there it is. It's like we're not the same. Like you're not making art. Like it's almost like again propaganda or like commercial art or decorative art, where it's like you had an agenda and you produced something. What I'm looking for from you is the sort of like, how did you arrive here as a true artist? If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's just sort of like show me that you how you're what you're trying to get at, or how you're exploring your art making, but like um, if you tell me matter of factly like what you're doing and this is how you did it and what you did, um, and that's usually work that again just doesn't hit as strongly or doesn't feel. So again, what we're talking about is beyond words or sort of that gut check feeling, but like a lot of great art really does hit like an emotional, like immediate way, and I think a lot of it has to do with that sort of like. So this is getting back to sort of like your audience is other people. So as an artist, you are communicating to other people, and people meet. You want people to see themselves in the work you're making, but through your voice and through your vision. So I want my work to feel like uniquely mine, but that people see themselves in it. And what you're getting at before, I know this because I collect art. I have books on my shelf. I have my own music library. It's very obvious to me that I'm curating myself. This is who I am. This is the art I collect. These are the books I read. This is the music I like. These are the clothes I wear. That's all we're doing as people is our tastes are like ways of trying to tell the world who we are. And you can talk about how like, I think a lot of people in life are trying to fit in or be normal, and so they like things or they consume things because they think that's what everyone else is doing and what they should like. Where for me, when I'm collecting art in this space, I'm very much like this represents my taste. This is what I think is the most interesting. I see myself in this, what this artist is doing. Books I like, music I like. I'm like, this person is enlightened and cool like me. This person is at my level. This I'm putting my stamp of approval on this. Um, and yeah, I have an ego enough to do like I collected this NFT. It goes up in value because I own it now. Like it's right. Like it's which is what's cool about collecting is you become part of the journey of the art, or like the art has special meaning, personal meaning to you. And yeah, that's the way I collect here too, where it's like I like a lot of different stuff and I see a lot of different stuff, and usually the stuff I collect is sort of like this is so undeniably like something I relate to or am attached to, or so I want to be remembered for having collected this in 2024 when people look back, whenever. Um, so yeah, I'm aware that people see themselves in my work, and the people who retweet, it's very obvious on Twitter, right? It's like they retweeted my video because they want it on their, they want to share it, cool. But part of it is like they want it on their feed because like these are my thoughts, these are things I'm posting, and also these are things that are like decorating my feed. These are things I think are cool. I want to share. I feel like reflect my feed, me. And we still have a ways to go with the metaverse, but I do have like, digital galleries and collectors who do that too. And it's like, yeah, it's like, this is like, come walk through my gallery. Like, it's so obvious, it's my gallery. I'm really excited about these artists, but I'm trying to tell you that this is who I am for having collected these things. So, yeah, that's the connection I have with my collectors, which is really cool. Where this is an oversimplification, but they are collecting me in some ways. And I, like we were saying, when I'm making work and it's going really well, I'm losing myself, or I'm becoming part of that greater human collective unconscious. And it's like I tapped into that higher thing, and they're recognizing it, and they feel it too.
Mm-hmm.
That's really beautiful with art. Like I think about musicians, like there's a difference, or a comedian, to like playing to a crowd versus like singing to yourself in your room. It's the same song, it's the same activity, but when you're playing it to a crowd and you're getting the feedback from them, you're like, I'm you, you're me. We're like, it's
Yes.
so deep, man. And that's what I'm, as an artist, what I feel every day, sharing my work and having it shared and collected. It's really special. Like, it is really special.
Yeah.
And what I think a lot of human beings should, again, like, isn't that what, at least me as crazed as a human being, it's like a connection to everyone, and that I'm like part of something bigger, and that I'm doing something every day that's like part of it's not about me. by focusing on what I want to make here, like it's about, yeah, it's very special.
Yeah. Man, this has been absolutely incredible. I can't wait to re-listen to this and listen to it more and more and really like absorb all the things that you've said here today, because I think there's invaluable sort of advice and knowledge and things that artists on their journey will absolutely resonate with. And I'm really appreciative of the time you came to spend today, and the knowledge and the wisdom and the experience that you shared means a lot. And I know this will definitely impact anyone who listens to it. And hopefully that's thousands and thousands of people eventually. And I mean, like, like you said in the end there, like with a comedian, it's like humor is something like you only think something's funny if you understand it. Same with art. It's like you love it because it's mirroring back to you yourself. And like something's funny because it's true and someone says it and you get it. And art is dope and amazing because you see yourself in there and you're like, that makes sense to me. That hits for me. So I just think there's a lot to learn and take from that as an artist, for myself, for anyone listening who is on their journey, who, when they're making something, if it doesn't blow up like they want it to or whatever, like if you're making it for you, you already won, because it's your journey, it's your diary entry and your impact on the blockchain in this case. But man, I definitely want to respect the time that you have given us. I know we went over for a half hour here and it's been amazing. So thanks so much for coming through, man. To say you're in it 5 the art is an understatement. You are seriously a beacon of light in this space. And I have tons of respect for you, man. So thank you for coming through.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the thoughtful questions. I appreciate the opportunity. And I'm excited to see your podcast grow, and to be a part of it early on, because I'm sure you're going to do a lot more from here.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much, man.
All right, dude. Have a great
All
day.
right. Thank you. You too, brother. Thanks for coming through.
Yep.
Later, Jake.